Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about Neptune conjunct Pluto in Synastry. And you're not going to find any information on this aspect in any Synastry book. I've checked them all, and there's just not a lot of information out there, even on the internet or anywhere with this aspect. So let's go into it. Now, this is only going to be significant or possible in a relationship with an age gap because I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's anybody alive with Neptune conjunct Pluto in their natal chart. I could be wrong though. So, this is something that will show up when we are in different generations here. So, this is a plutonic relationship, although, less so than if we have Pluto conjunct to Sun or Moon or something like that. But the Pluto person definitely feels an intense fascination, or even like they're pretty transfixed by the Neptune person. The Neptune person feels like the Pluto person has some sort of power over them. Now, the Neptune person could even be a bit afraid of the Pluto person in this case. Like, they can feel this vague, like, uncertainty about the Pluto person's intentions. They might even perceive the Pluto person as kind of like a dark energy, depending on the rest of the synastry. But if there is other synastry aspects that show that maybe there's been a karmic past life, or there's like south node stuff, or there's like squares with Mars or Saturn or something like that, there could even be kind of a paranoia between two people with this aspect. There can be, like, yeah, when Neptune, the planet of fantasies and dreams and illusions and our spiritual connection, is conjunct to Pluto, which is the planet of power and transformation and death and rebirth, sometimes in some cases this is going to bring up some sort of paranoid feelings about each other. And not necessarily coming from either side. It can kind of be a feeling of both, just an insecurity brought up here, because this is powerful, this is unusual. There's something very like mystical or spiritual about this connection, but it can actually be, yeah, kind of uncomfortable for the people involved in this relationship. It can definitely bring up a lot. Now, it can also show that combining as a couple, there is like a spiritual power in this relationship. The Neptune person is going to really be able to gain a lot of insight into, where they're maybe kind of delusional, or where they're like acting like an escapist or acting in a confused way. And then the Pluto person is becoming aware of, their power drive or their compulsiveness, or if the Pluto person is like someone who is like obsessive about relationships, or obsessive in like a sexual way about someone, the Neptune person is kind of like bringing all of that up for them. So there is a potential for a lot of spiritual awareness here, a lot of spiritual growth here, if they choose to indulge in this relationship, which might not happen because of, like I said, this is a powerful one. It can bring up confusing feelings on both people. And then there is a bit of a generation gap. Like, there is probably like a huge age gap, or potentially large age gap, that can also, it can confuse the people why they feel this way. Like, they might be like, it could be a relationship where it's very taboo. There's something definitely taboo about it, or like it could be like a mentor student relationship, or there's something very unusual or deep about it that they could just end up, running away. But then if they do indulge in a relationship with this aspect, it's something that will be remembered forever for the type of depth and spiritual transformation that has occurred here. So I wouldn't just say that on its own, this is a soulmate aspect, but if you throw this in with like some nodal conjunctions or, other outer planet things going on, then I would definitely think that this is a soulmate aspect because it's a very unique aspect. Like I said, you're not going to have this in your everyday kind of relationship. This is kind of like a once in a lifetime sort of thing. And that's why, the feelings can be so strong as well, is that it's rare. That's why there's no info on it. That's why like it's not an everyday kind of feeling that you're gonna have here with this one. So on the positive though, they can feel very deep feelings for each other. There can even be kind of like a mothering energy here, similar to like a Venus conjunct Pluto or like a Moon conjunct Pluto, because Neptune is kind of like the higher octave of Venus, right? There can be a feeling of like wanting to own each other, wanting to, like, once you have this and you're in this, it's like the urge to merge, like to be one with each other is very strong. So there can definitely be this feeling of like, this is a soulmate, this is someone I want in my life. There can be codependency brought up. There can be this feeling of, yeah, like you just fit perfectly together. It's like this soul merge aspect, right? And it's deeper than just like a Venus conjunct Neptune, or sorry, Venus conjunct Pluto in a way, because it's like, yeah, Neptune is like the higher octave of Venus. So it's like this even deeper fulfillment of our dreams, because Neptune is really a lot about like our ultimate like dream that we want to manifest but feels constantly elusive to us. The Neptune person can get the sense that the Pluto person could fulfill this dream or annihilate it completely. So it's it's a very intense aspect. And then the Pluto person can feel like the Neptune person is also a form of a dream that they want to fulfill as well, but it's also like they're gaining like a spiritualization of their Pluto energy. So wherever their Pluto is, you want to look at the natal house. You want to look at the sign that this conjunction is taking place in. That is the area that the Neptune person is kind of like dissolving for the Pluto person. So the Pluto person may act in ways that are very confusing to them or very unconscious to them. They might do things that they even regret because of the Neptune person. Whenever we have Neptune in a synastry, there is a potential for some kind of scandalous behaviors. Now, the Pluto person can feel overwhelmed by the way that they don't feel control over themselves. Pluto is where we want control. We, not as much as like Saturn, but like they can really feel like the Neptune person is like dissolving their boundaries in an area that they are very fearful to let go. And that can be incredibly intimate, or it could even be kind of vulnerable and like embarrassing or invasive for the Pluto person. The Pluto person can feel like they didn't have control over themselves in this relationship. And the Neptune person similarly can feel like they were sort of like swept into this by like this vague feeling of spiritual connection and this like deep feeling of soul merge, that it can kind of bring up shame and embarrassment on both parties for the way that they've just allowed themselves to indulge in this very illicit, potentially taboo energy. Now, if this is a non-romantic relationship, I think the potential for spiritual growth or like creative collaboration is probably even higher, because we're not going to have as much of the like scary, potentially sexual feelings and fears and inadequacies come up. I think in like a mentor student relationship or like a friendship, that there's just a really great potential for like huge spiritual insight and growth. And Neptune to Pluto is just this very ethereal, like transformative soul thing. And I do think that they could collaborate on something, like even creating some sort of like spiritual school, or like, there's a potential for great depth and awareness that like two evolved people who are not engaging in some sort of romantic thing might even have more potential to do. But of course, two very evolved people engaging in a romantic relationship will allow this to heal them as well, because that's really what it's here for. This is a unique synastry aspect. This is a unique relationship that is meant to be deep, that's meant to probe within you and dig up stuff and give it to God, heal it. Yeah. So you really want to look at the sign of this conjunction and the house placement that this is taking place in for both people to see like the major area that's being transformed by this relationship. So yeah, I know that was pretty elusive or confusing, or potentially like it's a hard to describe thing, because it is, like I said, it's a unique thing. It's unusual. It's not occurring at the personality level. That's a one thing that you have to understand about when we have outer planet to outer planet synastry, which of course is more rare, is that the personality is not really involved as much. We're dealing with like outer forces. We're dealing with like collective transmutation of energy. Like we're taking a big chunk of humanity's like collective energy as shown by Neptune and Pluto, and that's the muck that we're dealing with. That's the stuff that's going on. So you can personalize it by adding in the personal planets like that are also making aspects, but this is like this is a not, I mean, it's felt personally, but the changes that are occurring are transpersonal, if that makes sense. So I'd love to know your experience of this aspect in synastry. If you've had it, I have had it, and it was a big one. It was a mind fuck of an experience for sure. So I tried to describe it as best I could, but I'd love to know your experiences of this aspect. And thank you so much for the requests, you guys. Keep those requests coming, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.